Alpha and Omega, Isaiah 48. 48 furnaces. Isaiah 48 presented an experience where an individual was insistent. They knew what was the doctrine of God. Now, for those not ready for the spiritual battle of Revelation 12:17 and Daniel 8:23 to 25, you need to read on. Isaiah 48 caused an individual trying to execute a spiritual Kungfu kick on the subject of the Godhead, using God, Eternal Son, and one God heresy, and in the process completely lost balance and fell over badly. And this was because, like many, they don't know the facts, and Scripture rendered the force of the spiritual kick impotent. This is precisely what happens with Isaiah 48, because that chapter contains the divine deft signature of the Alpha and the Omega of Revelation 22:13 and 16, and how it is perfected with John 1:1, an everlasting gospel, and B, the furnace of affliction, as Isaiah described, is not like silver. This will be discussed. For better perspective, since the fulfillment of Luke 21:24, the subject of the Godhead is now the entire point of the first angel's warning. Laodicea betrayed their sacred trust and joined full unity with Mystery Babylon the Great, with the triune Godhead and God the Eternal Son heresy in Fundamentals 2 and 4. The first angel's warning is the response to big religion. Those who disregard the relevance of John 1:1, well, the third angel's warning then becomes reality. Yet Laodicea, for over a generation now, has compromised its Godhead in Fundamentals 2 and 4, and has blunt the force of the first angel's warning. And in so doing, Laodicea was hazed with the spiritual nonsense equals Triune Trinity, God Eternal Son equals Fundamentals 2 and 4 of Roman Catholicism, which was woven from the one God of Neoplatonism. The same old story, the Eternal Son heresy equals Fundamentals 2 and 4. The Alpha and the Omega of deadly heresies has been around a long, long time. So what has that to do with 48 furnaces? Well, in short, a lot. Isaiah 48 is in fact furnished with end-time details, which is none other than confronting the furnace of affliction. Verse 10. It says, Behold, I have refined thee, but not with silver. I have chosen thee in the furnace of affliction. Isaiah 48 records something very unique in respect to the first angel's warning. And guess what? It's lit up like a neon light. And what you have is the deft signature of the first angel's warning is all about. Verse 12. Hearken unto me, O Jacob and Israel, my called. I am he. I am the first. I also am the last. Isaiah 48:12 is signaling to the reader the biblical doctrine of Alpha and Omega, which is completely underestimated. And why? All because of the National Sunday Law, Sunday being the mark of the beast. And yet, what's the point of Laodicea holding Rome's formulation of the Godhead and worrying about a Sunday law? That is impossible to occur due to Revelation 17:16. If you haven't read 17 in Revelation, it's time for a refresher. Because the important point of the first angel's warning is how he who made establishes eternal righteousness by faith, which is the basis of the three angels' messages. Eternal righteousness of he who made equals John 1:1 is at stake if you haven't realized this by now. How? Remove Christ's eternal divinity and you repeat what occurred before the foundation of the world. See Revelation 13:8. What? Yep. endorsing God, the eternal Son heresy, you, yes, you, slay the Lamb once more. And if that's not enough, to sit up and pay attention, consider Hebrews 6:4-6, crucifying afresh he who made, and all the time believing in righteousness by faith. You are endorsing the law of one. Let that sink in for a while. And if you hadn't noticed, the doctrine of the Alpha and Omega bookends the book of Revelation at chapter 1 and chapter 22. In fact, God provided everyone the opportunity to be aware of the Alpha and the Omega, which is in fact the great controversy of Revelation, and therefore every effort to dethrone and crucify he who made, over and over, all the while believing in righteousness by faith. And the 2 Thessalonians 2 guy will ensure there is the furnace of affliction, equals Isaiah 48. Furnace of affliction, and the proxy of deception is using peace to destroy. See Daniel 8:23-25. That culminates with the oppressive law of Isaiah 2. Isaiah 48:10 and 12 is exceedingly important and rarely given any acceptance. Why? Fact is, the Alpha of Deadly Heresies fooled Laodicea in 1901 with the living temple, and still does. And the Omega of Deadly Heresies would be greatly more difficult to unravel. Sister White said it would be received. The 27 Fundamentals in 1980 was received from the Scarlet Hag, and that meant Laodicea clasped hands with spiritualism, accepting the creeds of the little horn as their doctrine of God. See Fundamentals 2 and 4. And why? Seems Laodicea forgotten about the war of the dragon of Revelation 12:17. And this war is over the Godhead, a war that goes back a long way, originating with Isaiah 14. What Laodicea failed to see is by Fundamentals 2 and 4 attacks the first angel. As mentioned, it is to involve the law of one. This law of one holds its existence with the false Shema of Deuteronomy 6:4 versus the true Shema of John 1:1 equals law of two divines, and it's all about the great city of Isaiah 2 and the third temple. And why? Well, it's because the first angel's warning is all about John 1:1, confirming the eternal identity and eternal divinity of Hologos equals Christ. And notice, Hologos is not named Jesus Christ, just the Word. And he who made confirmed. He was the first and the last, the Alpha and the Omega, equals Revelation 1:10 and 22:13 and 16. And this was by John, who recognized by Isaiah 48 and fully established by John 1:1. And why? As to the furnace of affliction, equals 48 furnaces. This is the war of Revelation 12:17 in its full unwind mode through the time frame of the antitypical 1290 literal days, equals the abomination of desolation as foretold by Jesus in Matthew 24:15. The abomination of desolation, led by the eighth king, is furious against the truth of the Alpha and the Omega and the first angel's warning. Yes, this is confirmed in Isaiah 2. So what about this furnace of affliction? War of Revelation 12:17. Well, this war over the Godhead. And the best example of this detail is this king, known as the first beast, generates extremes of gross blasphemy. And yes, recorded for those who have eyes to see. In Revelation 13. For he, the eighth king, for he openeth his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, and his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto them to make war with the saints, and to overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. Now, consider Daniel 8 rendition of the same king, equals the eighth king of Revelation 17, and Daniel provides a summary of the furnace of affliction. Daniel 8, and in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up, and his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power, and he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. And through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. Isaiah 48 confirms that war of Revelation 12:17, and is a furnace of affliction. And why? What's the connection in Isaiah 48? Well, as you read, it's because Isaiah established the identity of who he who is first and last equals the Alpha and the Omega in Isaiah 48:12. Nothing plainer. Be a proper humbug to dispute that prophetic authority of why the true doctrine of he who is first and last, Alpha and Omega, generates in the fullest sense the furnace of affliction, equals 48 furnaces. And all along, God said, those exposed to this furnace of affliction have little strength, and this is the fillies of Revelation 3. And why? Because they have the key of David. They realized what it took to solve the Alpha and the Omega of deadly heresies. The Alpha and the Omega is central today to the first angel's warning, and God did say, they who expose the heresies enter full conflict with the dragon, equals the furnace of affliction. It's over, the Alpha and the Omega, and having the key of David, a key that openeth, and no man shutteth, and shutteth, and no man openeth. Laodicea does not have the key of David. That is for the fillies. Now reread John 8:23 and 25. The end result of this conflict and controversy is, as you will recall, the synagogue of Satan worship at the fillies' feet, the Philadelphians. Revelation 3:9, behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee, because thou hast kept the word of my patience. I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world, to try them that dwell upon the earth. Nothing of such for the Laodiceans. They are emesai, spewed. Not silver, more precious than fine gold. In respect to the 48 furnaces, Isaiah said, it's not like silver, but then it would have to be gold, right? Isaiah 13 explains the distinction of why not silver, but gold. Behold, I have refined thee, but not with silver. I have chosen thee in the furnace of affliction. Isaiah 13. I will make a man more precious than fine gold, even a man than the golden wedge of Ophir. Therefore I will shake the heavens, and the earth shall remove out of her place, in the wrath of the Lord of hosts, and in the day of his fierce anger. The furnace of affliction. Isaiah 48. Behold, I have refined thee, but not with silver. I have chosen thee in the furnace of affliction. For mine own sake, even for mine own sake, will I do it. For how should my name be polluted? And I will not give my glory unto another. Hearken unto me, O Jacob and Israel, my called. I am he. I am the first. I also am the last. There you have it. The proof of Isaiah's insight, the divine evidence that he who made is the Alpha and the Omega by confirming what is stated in Revelation 22. I am the first and last equals Revelation 22:13 and 16 equals Alpha and Omega. And the fillies are refined like fine gold, not silver, and having the key of David that actually equals 48 furnaces of Isaiah 48, and is nothing less than the furnace of affliction, which is about the Alpha and the Omega, and Revelation 12:17. The furnace of affliction has an important aspect associated with the seven churches, and specifically to Laodicea. And guess what? They are counseled. It is to buy gold tried in the fire, and because of eternal righteousness was put to full sacrifice, his eternal identity, meant he who made went through the furnace of affliction, equals Isaiah 53, and that the experience is in relation to John 1:1, in respect to Revelation 14:6-7, is all focused solely in the first angel's warning. Mark 13:19. For in those days shall be affliction, such as was not from the beginning of the creation which God created unto this time, neither shall be. Laodicea's counsel, Revelation 3. In fact, Laodicea was counseled to buy of he who made gold tried in the fire, and their self-righteousness equals their own nakedness was caused by the creedal belief of triune Godhead, equals Neoplatonism's God the Eternal Son. 3:18 I counsel thee to buy of me gold tried in the fire, that thou mayest be rich, and white raiment, that thou mayest be clothed, and that the shame of thy nakedness do not appear, and anoint thine eyes, eye salve, that thou mayest see. This is confirmed in Revelation 16, which says, Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth, and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked, and they see his shame. The first angel's warning concerning the infestation of the Alpha and Omega of deadly heresies is true, and explains the command to worship he who made, equals John 1:1, equals two everlasting fathers. And those who do not have the awareness of the Alpha and Omega heresy have mouths without guile, and the true testimony of Jesus and eternal righteousness by faith can only bring forth the truth of the Alpha and Omega and eternal righteousness and the key of David. 7 times hotter, Daniel 3:19. Then Nebuchadnezzar had been full of fury, and the expression of his face had been changed concerning Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He answered and said to the heat, the furnace, 7 times above that which it is seen to be heated. The furnace of affliction and the testimony of he who made equals Revelation 12:11, and is in fact everything about the truth of the Alpha and Omega of he who made, equals John 1:1, because 7 times becomes 7 times hotter. And when is that time frame? Otherwise, why bother to ignore and even remain deceived by the Alpha and Omega of deadly heresies, and remain naked with no garment of righteousness? Jesus described the time frame of furnace of affliction as abomination of desolation, equals Matthew 24:15. It entails a total of 90 days. Revelation 13 explains it's broken into 2 segments. The time portion of the first beast, which equals the 1260 days, and then a transition to the second beast. And that segment, according to Daniel 12, lasts into the plus 30 additional days, equals the total of 1290, and then culminates through to the additional plus 45 days, which is the end at the 1335. Daniel 12:11-12 says, And from that time that the daily shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days. Blessed is he that waiteth, and cometh to the 1,335 days. A lot of uncertainty exists about Revelation 10. Does it relate to Revelation 18 and the loud cry? But in the days of the voice of the 7th angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God should be finished, as he hath declared to his servants the prophets. And the voice which I heard from heaven spake unto me again, and said, Go, and take the little book, which is open in the hand of the angel, which standeth upon the sea and upon the earth. And I went unto the angel, and said unto him, Give me the little book. And he said unto me, Take it, and eat it up, and it shall make thy belly bitter, but it shall be in thy mouth sweet as honey. And I took the little book out of the angel's hand, and ate it up. And it was in my mouth sweet as honey, and as soon as I had eaten it, my belly was bitter. And he said unto me, Thou must prophesy again before many peoples, and nations, and tongues, and kings. What's the voice of the 7th angel? It's the time frame of the second and third woe, the time of the first beast, and then the second beast equals the 1260, and then the plus 30, and then on to the 1335 of Daniel 12:11 to 12. What is the prophecy about? Daniel 12:11 to 12 and Matthew 24:15 equals the imminence of the second coming. It definitely follows the loud cry of the seventh king, which is followed by the deadly wound. Furnace of affliction, in its context. And I said unto him, Sir, thou knowest. And he said unto me, These are they which came out of great tribulation, and have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Therefore are they before the throne of God, and serve him day and night in his temple. And he that sitteth on the throne shall dwell among them. They shall hunger no more, neither thirst any more, neither shall the sun light on them, nor any heat. For the Lamb which is in the midst of the throne shall feed them, and shall lead them unto living fountains of waters, and God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes. There is no prophetic disappointment prior to the seventh angel, since the 5 p.m. call has the glorious weight of the loud cry, and all fear is removed by the refreshing of the latter rain. Then it's the countdown from the 1290 to the 1335. So what happens when folk who study the scriptures realize the basis of the fire of affliction equals first angel's warning about the Alpha and the Omega of deadly heresies, and of course, the key of David equals Phillies? There will be a complete lack of tolerance in every respect by the eighth king, and all those 10 guys of Revelation 17 equals Zechariah 23. They will be fierce, intolerant about the key of David and the Alpha and the Omega, and there is Laodicea, problem of the foolish virgins who blew their chances looking for oil. Their oil ran out. The foolish at midnight turn on the Phillies? No question. Note, the 5 p.m. call is singular, whereas the call to preach to many peoples, nations, and tongues of Revelation 10 is describing the concurrent call of 12 and 3 p.m., the former being the bitter scroll, and the latter preaching to many peoples, nations, and tongues, up to 1980. Whereas the Phillies, by way of the loud cry of Revelation 18, lighten the earth with its glory. Unlike the 3 p.m. workers, who reach many peoples and nations and tongues. And with the fulfillment of Luke 21:24, and the supernatural events of Fundamentals 2 and 4 that are from the Roman Catholic Church, God put a stop to the many peoples, nations, and tongues in 1980. What? Well, yeah. The unity of big religion is the same. They all teach the same fundamental 2 and 4 doctrines. Right? Does the loud cry equal Revelation 10? Equals era of the voice of the seventh angel? No, not really. Because the second movement culminates in many people, nations, and tongues. Not all peoples, nations, and tongues are required by the loud cry, with the earth being lighted with the glory of he who made. See Revelation 18:1 and 5. And after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, The voice of the seventh angel is not contemporaneous with the 5 p.m. call. The 5 p.m. call is the loud cry. The voice of the seventh angel is after 6 p.m. and marks the time frame of the great earthquake along with the 7 thunders. This was discussed in reference to the 6th seal. The only missing component in relation to the 6th seal are the voices, lightnings, and thunders. Yet the great earthquake is present and tied into the second coming of Christ in verse 16. Revelation 6, and I saw when he opened the sixth seal, and there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the whole moon became as blood, and the stars of the heaven fell unto the earth, as a fig tree casteth her unripe figs when she is shaken of a great wind. The seventh seal extends from the trumpets up to the seventh angel blowing his trumpet. And when he openeth the seventh seal, there followed silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. And I saw the seven angels stand before God, and there were given unto them seven trumpets. The seventh seal appears to last up to the time when the seventh angel blows his trumpet. Prior to that comes the seven trumpets. Revelation 8. And the seventh angel sounded, and there followed great voices in heaven, and they said, and there was opened the temple of God that is in heaven, and there was seen in his temple the ark of his covenant, and there followed lightnings, and voices, and thunders, and an earthquake, and great hail. Voice of the seventh angel takes place in third woe. And the seventh poured out his bowl upon the air, and there came forth a great voice out of the temple from the throne, saying, It is done. And there were lightnings, and voices, and thunders, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since there were men upon the earth, so great an earthquake, so mighty. And the great city was divided into three parts, and the cities of the nations fell. And Babylon the Great was remembered in the sight of God, to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. And every island fled away, and the mountains were not found. And great hail, every stone about the weight of a talent, cometh down out of heaven upon men. And men blasphemed God because of the plague of the hail, for the plague thereof is exceeding great. The era of the loud cry of Revelation 18 does not take place during the third woe, yet it's very close. The loud cry precedes the 1260, since it takes place right after the fatal wound of the grand monarch, equals, and the fall of Mystery Babylon the Great. But this is still not the third woe. There is no preaching of the gospel during the third woe. There is only the testimony of the saints who are living in a world after the departure of Alos, who are standing firm in the faith just as Jacob wrestled with the angel and whose name was changed to Israel, equals overcomer. Furnace of affliction? And while that is true, that there are bitter experiences, it is unlike that of the experience of the pioneers, since the great disappointment delay shattered their hopes. Yet at this point in time, after the loud cry, there remains 1290 days, Matthew 24:15. While that is indeed bitter, along with the remaining 45 days, what awaits the saints who are aware of it is the completion of the 1335 and the blessed and expectant one. What is illustrated in Revelation 10 is only in relation to the fulfillment of 12 and 3 p.m. on the parabolic time clock of Matthew 20. In particular, the second movement in relation to the bitter scroll, it being the second movement preached faithfully until the fulfillment of Luke 21:24. There is no evidence that this is tied to the 5 p.m. call of the vineyard workers, which takes the loud cry to the world and lightens the earth with its glory. None. The bitter experience of the saints at the very end is nothing new, and also took place in the first century, which was terrible, being thrown to lions, etc. Later, the Inquisitions, as well as throughout history, up to the very end of the age. Revelation 10's task. Revelation 10's task confirms the parabolic clock of Matthew 20 in reference to the concurrent call, whereas Revelation 18 reveals the earth being lighted with the glory of God in the loud cry of Revelation 18. The loud cry of Revelation 18, and after these things, Revelation 17:10-18, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lighted with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, The earth was lightened is by a great power, is in fact a totally different scenario than that of Revelation 10, whose message is trumpets equals Millerites and the Day of Atonement equals first angel up to the time frame of its demise, which equals 1980 equals Luke 21:24. And then the first angel reverts back to its original purpose of John 1:1. Yes, the entire issue of Alpha and Omega. The Alpha and the Omega and Key of David involves, according to Isaiah 48, the fire of affliction and requires the full armor of God in Ephesians 6. First angel equals Alpha and Omega and eternal righteousness, furnace of affliction, 7 times hotter, gold tried in the fire, 48 furnaces of Isaiah 48.